Okay, let's go ahead and get started. As a part of our session, we must provide you with this disclaimer. This presentation is prepared by NTTAC under cooperative agreement from SAMHSA. While this event is supported by SAMHSA, the contents and those are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of SAMHSA, HHS, or the U.S. government. I have just a couple more of our logistical slides to get through. So around session security, we hope there are not any security issues in this session today, but if any are to occur in this session will immediately end and you will be notified by email on how to rejoin a new session, okay? So do not come back to this link. Thank you again for attending one of our NTTAC sessions. Listed here are just a few of all of our incredible national partners that have come together to utilize their expertise, their subject matter knowledge to help inform the field by creating products, resources, and sessions like these to enhance the behavioral and mental health field. All right. As a center, our vision is that all children, youth, and families living and impacted by mental health challenges will have access to the resources, opportunities that they need to thrive in a comprehensive and equitable system of care. We serve a wide cross-sector audience, including everyone from state leaders to providers to school workforce and infant and early childhood providers, community-based providers, peer supervisors, family partners, youth partners, you name it. Our services range from individual consultation to more in-depth sessions like the one we're offering today, to peer learning exchanges and tools to help you. Our aim is to really create those outlets of communication, collaboration, and resource sharing amongst all of us. Please also make sure to check out all of our resources and archive presentations on our website, or go to the Contact Us link there to request a consultation or training. All right, we will put our website in the chat box just so you all have direct access to that. And yeah, let me move along here. So yeah, before we get started, I want to address some commonly asked questions that come up during our sessions to let you know some of those answers before. In the follow-up email for today's session, you will receive a certificate for completion, a link to the recording session, and a copy of the slide deck. You should also have received, you would not have received a copy of this slide deck ahead of time, but you will receive it after this session. With that being said, let's go ahead and move into the next slide. Hey, before we get started, and I promise you this is our last slide, All Systems Go is the System of Care Summit. It's a virtual summit. It's May 14th through 16th this year, 2024. The theme is reunite, renew, and re-energize. Can't say that too fast. Here's the link on the screen. Feel free to visit the website and get registered. I'm telling you, it's going to be amazing. There's no registration fees. There's over 30 speakers and presenters, free continuing education credits, and you have access to multiple networking opportunities. So you get to meet all types of folks. Last year was amazing. We had a ball. It went by so fast. I'm wondering how we're going to get all this stuff done in 2 days, but I promise you it's going to be amazing and you don't want to miss it. With that being said, I said a lot really quick. Welcome to today's session. Today is an interview with the youth specialist. We have made it through all of the housekeeping tools. And so now I want to introduce myself. Sorry, that is my coffee pot. That has to be a part of the show. I am today's conversations moderator, and I'm Jasmine Boatwright. I am a youth programs coordinator with Youth Move National. I've been with Youth Move National for about 6 years, and I am also the co-lead of the Community Wellness and Peer Support Transformation Team through the NTTAC center. With that being said, today we are planning to keep this real informal and really kind of converse with each other. That is Coco. Coco says hi. Um, we are going to be introduced to Huck Telwar, who is an amazing youth specialist here at Youth Move National. Huck will tell us a little bit about his journey and kind of how he got into this work. And then we will have a few minutes to kind of generate some interview questions for Huck. And I'm hoping that you all will join me in interviewing Huck. So, versus me interviewing Huck one on one, I'm hoping that the questions that you all generate, you will be willing to come off of mute and ask Huck yourself, hence the community interview. That being said, we'll move right into our closing, and hopefully you all will enjoy today. So with all of that being said, please help me in introducing Huck. Huck, let me go ahead and just tell you all a little bit about who Huck is. Huck Telwar uses the pronouns he, him, is a youth program specialist / trainer at Youth Move National. In this role, Huck develops and delivers a variety of interactive workshops on various topics for diverse audiences. His areas of expertise include eating disorders, trauma, and psychosis in LGBTQ community. Huck has taken part in numerous councils, work groups, including MEIP, Maryland Early Intervention Program, and SCAN, which is State Council for Child Abuse and Neglect. Sources of strength, and more. Huck started in the behavioral health field in 2019 as an administrative assistant and has worked his way into a role that utilizes his talents and creativity. Prior to joining Youth Move, Huck was a training specialist on Our Own of Maryland, Inc. He was also a writer at Diamond International Galleries, writing reviews, editorials, and scripts, as well as conducting interviews with professional creators. This led Huck strengthening his communication skills, which he uses, in his current role to educate others on topics lesser known to the general public. His own lived experience has given Huck a passion with which he advocates for issues that face the well-being of those within behavioral health system. With all of that being said, please help me in welcoming Huck to our stage today.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. I appreciate it. Love the claps. Amazing. Oh my gosh, yeah. We've got some emojis going on. Love that. Thank you so much. So yeah, as Jasmine said, I'm Huck. I work for Youth Move National. And a lot of actually most of the work that I do today has to do with the lived experience that I have, and it has to do with things that I didn't have and things I wish I had, things I know would be helpful for youth today that I never got to experience, like youth peer support. I never got that, but I know it is super effective um, in in helping with healing and recovery overall. Basically, my background comes from I was hospitalized for the first time in 2019. No, it was 2012. And for the first time in 2012, and I had a really, really terrible experience. I popped around from unit to unit, and I ended up on the eating disorders unit, which was actually really terrible. I think everyone on that unit has some type of trauma or another from staying there. But the fact that I had such a bad experience in the hospital over the years, because I've been hospitalized more times than I care to admit. Um most of that lived experience was kind of just really terrible things happening one right after another. Um, and coming into this field, I kind of just fell into it, because a friend of mine worked at On Our Own of Maryland, um, and got me a job as an administrative assistant. And from there, I kind of worked my way up and up and up. And the more I learned about peer support and the more I learned about the mental health system, the more invested I got in thinking that, hey, maybe we can make these changes that would help people. Maybe I can help youth and young adults so they don't have to go through what I went through. So in doing peer support, I have come to know and love tons and tons of new people that I didn't even know existed. I have come to learn so many things about peer support that I didn't know were rules or guidelines or helpful hints or anything like that. Um, and now I am hoping that I can kind of bring youth voice to the table so that youth can have their own say in not only their own treatment, um, but but in systems change overall, so that they can have some kind of input into bigger decisions, instead of just uh, individual ones. But with that, without going into, extreme detail about, why I ended up in the hospital and all of that, just want to ask real quick, if anyone has questions about anything I've said so far. It looks like everybody is on the same page, which is amazing. Jasmine, is there anything in particular that you wanted me to share about?
Definitely. Thank you so much for introducing us to you, Huck. I think at this time we could definitely roll into just thinking about um, a couple basic questions. So we want to roll into our interview questions chatter ball, which is where we kind of just take a couple minutes and really process what Huck has shared with us so far, and figure out if there's any additional questions or anything that sparks some curiosity in what Huck has said. And we want to type our questions into the chat box, and do not push enter when you type your question into the chat box. um, I will prompt you when to push enter, which will allow everyone's questions to come in together and allow us to do what we call a chatter call. Um, was those directions clear? Can I get a thumbs up from folks if that was clear? And please let me know if you need me to go through. Now, we do have a list of a few questions. Thank you for the thumbs up and emoji. Um, we do have a list of a few questions that Huck has already approved to go through. Um, and what we can do is maybe ask a couple of those questions first and then circle back to the generate more questions as we go. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. Okay. So let's get started with question number one. And this is the community interview. So I would love for you all, if you see a question on the screen that you would like to ask Huck, or if you have your own question, please come off mute or jump in the chat box so that we could interview Huck together. Let's go here. Huck, our first question is, can you describe your role as a youth coordinator and what it entails on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so most of what I do is actually training, including those for youth and young adults, as well as people trying to become youth peer support specialists. And sometimes even sometimes even providers or clinicians. I've done that as well. Um, on a day-to-day basis, it includes essentially being in touch with youth and young adults whom Youth Move National is working with. It includes developing, creating, and delivering trainings on youth peer support and varying topics like the 8 dimensions of wellness or mental models or self-care, so much more. So my day-to-day is honestly fairly calm because I'm focusing more on trainings right now.
Cool. While we wait for volunteers, I can keep us going. What inspired you to pursue a career in youth coordination, and how has your passion evolved over time?
So, like I said, I kind of fell into this field, but once I did, this is where I started to learn that I have a big interest in this field, especially given the fact that I have so much lived experience within these systems. I started working for the Transitional Age Youth Project at On Our Own, and I discovered that working with youth makes me feel kind of very like determined. And again, I think the logic is that I don't want any of the youth or young adults to go through what I went through when I was that age because it was really bad. Um, my passion is has only gotten stronger. I think the more I work in this field, the more I realize that it is at times very broken. Um, so that passion never really stops, you know. I don't think that things are ever going to be perfect because I don't believe perfection exists. But um, going by that, I think that as long as there are things that can change, I'm going to be an advocate to change them for the better.
Thank you. I see Tandra and Kyla's hand. Tandra, you can go ahead first.
Huck, can you share some of the most significant projects or initiatives you've been involved in as a youth coordinator?
Sure. So one of the bigger ones that I really like doing was Sources of Strength. This is this endeavor to do suicide prevention in Howard County Public Schools. Howard County is where I live. Um, and this included, I don't think I've ever been so involved with the youth themselves as I was during this whole project. And we got together and we talked about campaigns that the kids, the students wanted to do, and we talked about how they could make it all come to fruition. And when it did, everybody was just so incredibly happy. The students, like the youth themselves, they were um, just as determined as I was to make systems level changes. Everybody seemed like by the end of it, they gained more and more and more passion towards what we were working for. And they got a lot closer themselves. The students became really close friends. They kept in touch with us, and that created a little community there that up until that point I didn't know was possible to do. So that's definitely one of them. And then also I want to mention that eating disorders are kind of like that's my area of expertise within mental health, that and trauma versus psychosis. um but I came up with this eating disorders training when I worked at On Our Own of Maryland, and it was a huge hit. Tons of people wanted that training, tons of people asked for that training. um and in terms of the youth, it kind of opened their eyes to the fact that like they're not alone. And to the adults, it opened their eyes to like, oh my God, I didn't know this was such a big issue. Like I didn't know it was that deep, but like eating disorders are really big deal, especially nowadays. So that was definitely another one.
Thank you for asking that question, Tandra. Kyla, I saw, I did see your hand up. I'm not sure if it's still up.
Yeah, hi. Oh, what's happening? Sorry, my computer went all wonky. I just had a question. I believe it kind of ties into the last question on the screen. Just when you're working with youth that you're having trouble um connecting with almost, like you're connecting with them, but there seems to be like a piece missing, just like your best advice on how to really encourage them and promote them in the best way and build that rapport.
Yeah, for sure. It is super difficult to engage youth. I'm not even gonna lie. It's a struggle a lot of the time, but once you get through that barrier, it gets really, really great. It's a lot of meeting them where they are in terms of like energy, understanding, empathy. It's also about letting them guide the conversation. I'm there, if they need support or if they need prompting questions, but mostly I just like to provide a jumping off point and then let them lead the interaction. I also think it's really important to talk to youth and young adults about kind of relatable things, like this whole transition age period, or school, teachers, parents, feelings, smaller problems. And a big one is I always find that humor comes in handy. I like to joke that my purpose in life is comic relief. And it works. It works really well because I don't know, if you can get someone laughing, they like automatically trust you. It's amazing.
Yeah, I really appreciate your advice. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Okay, I see a question in the chat box. I know you answered the one around transition age youth, but there's another one. Dwayne, I want to invite you to come off mute to ask your question to Huck, or I can ask it for you, whichever one feels comfortable. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and ask it for you. What keeps you going? What keeps you going in this?
What keeps me going? Um, what keeps me going, I think, is the fact that I've been in the mental health system since 2012. So it's been some time. It's been about 12 years now. Um, and I have seen good parts of it, and I have seen really, really bad parts of it. Um, and honestly, what keeps me going in the work that I do is the fact that the mental health system oftentimes is very fickle. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to call who, where you're going to end up, how you're going to be transported. Like you never know what's going to happen. Um, and it can be really scary. For me, it was I cried every single day for the first like week that I was in the hospital. Um, and it was plain and simple. It was a terrifying experience, and um, after a while, once I got used to it, once I learned that like it was okay, once I learned how to do the things they were asking me to do, once I kind of like calmed down, basically, I realized that uh, it might not be so bad. And then years and years and years later, I actually did the work instead of just saying that I could, saying that I would. I did all the work that I was given to do that would benefit me, supposedly, and it worked. And I didn't know that it was possible after years and years and years of depression. I didn't know that I could go a single day without wishing I was dead. Um, and this is a really big deal for me because I haven't felt content or stable in a very long time, and I finally do now. And now that I realize it's possible, I want everybody in the world to feel like this. Because it's a really powerful, very empowering feeling. So I think the fact that I'm doing well is also pushing me towards helping other people do well.
That's amazing, huh? Thank you so much for that response. I see Miss Valdez. I don't want to mispronounce your first name. Go ahead, please answer your question. Oh, you're still on mute.
Sorry. Sorry, I just want to say thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned that there was a point where you went from saying that you'll do the certain things, that you'll do certain practices or things that were supposed to be helpful for you, and there was a change to actually doing them. And I'm curious if you could think back on what was that actual key thing that helped you to change from, yes, I'm going to do it, or yes, I know that this is supposed to help to actually practicing them, because that's what you said that eventually got you to feeling better, or changing some of the ways you were feeling.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking is because in my work, I'm a community health educator, and what I do is I present information on mental health, and certain techniques and things that would be able to help, and healthy habits. But ultimately, it's up to the youth and up to the young adults and the participants to actually do them. You know, during class, they say, yes, okay, that makes sense, or like, but in practice, I don't know how much they're actually doing it. And what gets, what would be that trigger to help them shift their mindset to actually trying those things to get on that, that start that journey for themselves.
Right. Okay. So again, that motivation obviously is different for everyone. Personally, what happened with me was I ended up in a partial hospitalization program right after my abusive girlfriend of like 3.5 years broke up with me. And at that point, I was so incredibly angry with her. Um, I was angry with every word that she screamed, every time she hit me. It was absolutely terrible. Um, and I went into treatment and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna prove to her that I can do well without her. Because that was her thing, this whole like you wouldn't be anywhere without me. Um, so that was a big part of the motivation. But when it comes to actually implementing the things that I was taught, I essentially just decided one day that I was going to actually care. I decided, what do I have to lose? I have like, a couple, maybe 2 months in this place. I'm not doing anything else. Like I'm not working because I'm here. Um, so I don't really have anything to lose. And if in 2 weeks nothing works, then I'm just going to bail. So I gave myself that time limit, which was very short, and it was really useful because that means that I could just be like, okay, well, I tried. I gave it a good try. At least I could say that. Um, but once I started actually putting work into recovery, uh, I did see changes in those 2 weeks, and I was like, damn, like it works. So from that point on, I really kind of just threw myself into my recovery. I did everything I could to be better. I went to every therapy session. I saw my psychiatrist every week. Um, I did groups, um, and I did all the at-home stuff that they told me to do. And that was things like a lot of self-care. It was meditation, it was journaling, it was a lot of DBT, learning how to catch my thoughts when they happen, stop them, think about why they're happening, and then proceed forward. So it was a mix of kind of an abusive ex, and then me figuring out that recovery actually works, and also me just being sick of being sad. It got really old for me.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes. Do you have another question, Ms. Valdez?
Not for now.
Thank you. Now, I've seen a couple of questions in the chat box. Tandra, would you like to come off mute and ask your second question?
Yes, and thank you again, Huck, for sharing and being so transparent. You did just touch on what I wanted to ask, which was what's in your wellness box that you use the most or that you use with your youth?
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna have to pick just a couple. I don't think I want to go through everything. Um, the ones that I use the most are first of all DBT and CBT. I'm a big fan of both. That's dialectical behavioral therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy. Both are extremely helpful, and I would recommend DBT to like everyone in the world. It's very useful. So those two for sure. And journaling kind of goes along with that because like kind of monitoring your emotions, seeing what triggers what emotion, finding patterns in your behavior. Those are really, really helpful tools to have. um but also when it comes to um the youth that I work with, a lot of the time it has to do with self-reflection. And in that I really love to do artwork. So I am constantly telling everyone to do whatever they can. It doesn't matter if it's pretty or not. That's not the purpose. The purpose is just, you know, going through the journey, going through the process, and having a good time. If there's a prompt, that's even better. People respond very well to that, actually, art prompts. But if there isn't one, just like a free for all, do whatever you're doing, draw whatever you're feeling, use whatever colors, whatever shapes, whatever medium you want to use. And most of the time, it works out really well, and people feel like they've had this sort of like release of emotion. So definitely going with that one.
Awesome, Riffic. If I may, I have a second part to that question. Is do you help your youth create their own wellness toolbox?
Absolutely. I think I mentioned earlier that I am extremely, like, intimately familiar with the 8 dimensions of wellness. I go through this with them a lot, and each dimension of wellness has its own purpose and importance and everything. Um, and with that, we'll go through every single dimension of wellness and write down, what am I already doing? Let me give myself, a pat on the back for that. What more can I do, and how can I use my supports to help me achieve what I want to do? And we do those 3 questions for every single dimension of wellness. Um, and that usually builds a pretty sturdy toolbox to keep all of these ideas in, and they can always revisit them, add to them, delete stuff, whatever they need to do. But the 8 dimensions of wellness are that's typically my go-to.
Awesome, Riffic. Thank you so very much for answering my questions.
Sure.
Okay, I want to open it up for folks to see if you all have any additional questions before I continue to ask mine. Oh, Kathy, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay. I'd like to know that when you're dealing with youth that have experience with the justice system and they have mental health needs, what are some of the things that they express as being some of the greatest challenges to them?
Mostly, actually. I've heard a lot of like people don't listen because they're youth. People think that because they're young, they don't know what they're talking about. So there's this credibility issue. Um, and credibility within the mental health system, within the justice system especially, is like very, very valuable. Um, so a lot of it comes down to credibility when it comes to like the youth not knowing too much about um what they're really getting into, and a lot of it also comes down to doing research, just like making sure that they have the knowledge that they need so that people will look at them as equals, which is honestly really unfair. Like okay, maybe I don't know all of the things that you do, but nobody knows all of the things that I know. That's just the way that life works. Like I probably don't know even half the things um that everybody on this call knows, or everybody that or anything that they think about or work with, or just any random facts about like lemurs. I don't know. But definitely credibility is the number one issue that I've come across myself.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a question, Huck. Coming from somebody who's of the older generation, could you give us some, or give me some advice on how to further make the gap smaller between generations? Working with people that are younger, sometimes I feel they look at me because I'm older, like I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't understand. When, I have a lot of empathy and I have a lot of understanding because I do have challenges myself. So I just want to build that gap without close that gap without being like and trying to stay true to what I'm doing.
Sure. So I think the most important thing that you can do to close that gap is to listen to them. Listening is one of the most important skills to have. I think when it comes down to it, if you understand their story and if you ask them questions about things that they're going through, if they share their lived experience with you, that is going to make things a lot easier, because then you'll be like you said, you have that empathy. So you'll be able to say like, oh, you were going through this, that, and the other. I totally know how that feels. Or I can imagine this might make you feel like that. Or that must be really difficult for you. Let's talk about it some more. So I think most of it actually has to do with just keeping an open ear and hearing what everyone has to say. And responding to that, rather than coming at it with like, these are the skills that I've learned as a professional, let me put them to use. Like, of course, yeah, that's fabulous. But we definitely want to make sure that things are more individualized.
Okay, thank you.
I
Okay.
have,
Oh, go ahead, Beverly.
I'm sorry, Jasmine. I was gonna ask, hi, Hook. What characteristics do youth normally relate to the most, when you're working with them?
Oof, what characteristics? That's an interesting question. Um, a lot of it comes down to honestly and unfortunately, it comes down to adverse child experiences. um I think they could relate to that quite a bit, and having conversations about that in a safe environment with someone who has been through the same thing has been pretty life changing for them. So definitely characteristics of like when it comes to lived experience, that helps a lot if you have a similar lived experience, or different lived experience, but to the same token of like the emotions that it creates. Um, a lot of them also, for some reason, will be very like into like diagnoses as well. And if we definitely don't want to say like, oh, I have that too. Like, I don't think that's the greatest thing to do right off the bat. Um, but it's definitely beneficial when it comes to being like, oh, I totally understand how that feels, explaining how you feel, and then hearing them be like, oh my God, I totally feel the same way. Like, what? Um, so just relatability as well definitely helps.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, Huck, you're okay over there? We've been, we've been throwing these questions at you.
I'm
Okay,
chilling. I'm good.
Patricia has a question. Patricia, you're still on mute if you're talking to us. Okay, maybe Patricia walked away from the computer. I actually have a question. Do you have that like one impactful success story or a moment in your work as a coordinator that was really impactful?
Ooh. I think honestly when someone I was working with decided to get sober. Um I saw that transition in her. I saw it happen. I saw her determination, and I saw that she had learned and also implemented all that we talked about, all that her supports had talked about. Um, Really, truly, we don't ever know how big an impact that our work can make, but trust me, it can literally change lives. It can save lives, and even more so, it can save us. Um, yeah, but I think the decision to get sober is quite a big decision. Um, and it happened while we were while we were talking, and I'll never forget that. It's Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Huck, I just want you to know you're getting all types of love in the chat box right now. Everyone is giving you, saying how powerful and thankful they are for you sharing.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you guys.
Patricia is unable to unmute and dropped her question in the chat. She says, how do you get a child or youth to talk when they are shut down?
Okay, so I think at this point, self-soothing is the way to go. So I would offer them things that have really strong scents, or give them things something cold, like temperature wise as well. Um, and kind of just assure them that if they need space, you will give them space, and then actually give them the space that they want. Um, just let them kind of mull things over, but be very close by to make sure nothing negative happens, nothing dangerous happens. But I think the key is to one, give them space that they need. Two, assure them that they're in a safe environment. Three, make sure that they're okay, like sensory wise, because sensory issues will definitely make them kind of shut down, not feel like talking, not feel like sharing, want to just leave the room entirely. So feeling good sensory wise as well, and then just being like, it's just us, no one else is gonna know what you say. I'll keep it to myself, I promise you're safe here, and then actually create that safe environment. So I think just assuring them would be best, because kind of being like, you have to talk to me, or like, we're never going to get anywhere if you don't talk. And like comments like that really don't help like at all. I think it's really just about the youth's comfort.
I love that. Thank you. I also see in a chat box, someone said that you mentioned that you provide training for youth peer support. Can you talk a little more about that and what it looks like from your organization?
Sure. So from Youth Move National, we do training, some of them for free. We do some of them for some kind of monetary payment. But most of them have to do with kind of how to be a peer support specialist. Things about uh, uh, like the 8 dimensions of wellness, and mental models, and everything that you could use to better yourself. Which honestly, the first time I took 8 dimensions of wellness, I was like, oh, this is like really useful. Like, I'm going to use this for myself instead of just like only offering it to youth and young adults. Yeah, I you can get in contact with us on our website, and which I think I'll be able to put in the chat in just a minute. But you can fill out a TA request online, and then we will get back to you as soon as possible, and let you know what's going on with training. So that's how that works at Youth Move. And then I'm gonna try and get the URL right now.
So while Huck is finding the correct URL for
There
to
you go.
request training, I dropped the Youth Move National website in the chat box, and I'll also drop, Huck just dropped the Peer Center as well. So
Nice. Awesome.
okay, Chrissy has a question, and there's definitely time, Chrissy.
Hi everybody.
Hi, Chrissy.
Hi, Jasmine. It's wonderful to see you and to hear you. And Huck, thank you so much for your conversation today. My question is kind of broad, so let me know if this makes sense. My question is this. So from your experience as a youth, or your experience working with youth, what do you think are some of, or maybe the most impactful ways that a peer specifically can support young people? So like in our model in Michigan, we talk sometimes in really broad concepts, like give them hope, share your story, empower them. But when it comes down to like what specifically can peers do to instill those feelings of hope? So like in our state, we talk a lot about like make sure that the peer role is different from the clinician's role. And like, how is it different than what a parent would do, or like other people in their natural supports, or like I say, it's not therapy. But I think sometimes, we need to be able to define and help support our peer workforce in operationalizing what they do. Like I don't want to minimize the power of listening or sharing our experiences. Like those are such important tools. But I'm just wondering, like some more tangible, like do you think that sharing like examples of your like coping skills, or like practicing those things, or like doing groups with peers, or going out into the community and doing hands-on things together? It's like, what does it look like what advice would you give to peers to build that relationship?
So I would definitely say that like quality time when you're doing that, like, sharing your coping skills and all that stuff, it definitely does the youth good to hear about it. but it does them even better to do it. So I think I would have to say actually sitting down with the youth and doing things with them. Like if I'm saying to them, hey, do this journal prompt, I'm also going to do that journal prompt. And if we both want to share at the end, we're both going to share with each other at the end. If we're doing any piece of like art therapy type of stuff, if they're doing art, I'm doing art. If they're if I tell them you know, you need to do X, Y, and Z, you need to practice this this coping skill, like I don't know, meditation, for instance. If I'm telling them to meditate, I'm also meditating. And in the end, we're going to share how it made us feel. If it made us feel good, we'll pop it in the toolbox. If it didn't work that much, we'll save it for another day to try again.
I love that so much. That hands-on kind of doing in real time makes so much sense to me. I also want to ask you, like, in terms of mental health, like, you know, we're talking about like coping skills and things like that, but have you found benefit in like supporting youth with doing, I guess, like transition kind of life things like employment or you know, like what is the peer role in your eyes with those types of like adulting sort of skills?
No, peers, yeah, peers definitely play a role in that as well. I have helped people with employment, with unemployment, with disability, um, all of that kind of stuff. Um, I think comes in handy, especially when it's like smaller things that are kind of uncomfortable, like a 2 weeks notice letter or or something like that. It's it helps to kind of work with them with whatever issues they're facing. If you haven't been through it, obviously there's not a whole lot of relatability there, but I think universal things that people have gone through, I think are super helpful with youth so that they can be like, oh, this is actually normal.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We want to thank you all for joining this session today. And I really want to thank you all for getting so active in the community interview. And of course, I want to give a special thank you to Huck. Huck, you are amazing in letting us just kind of sit and pick your brain and learn from your lived experience as well as your professional experience. And you all were so graceful and so great with the questions that you asked. Hopefully, this was amazing for you as much as it was amazing for me. With that being said, thank you all for joining us. We want you to look forward to a follow-up email that will have a certificate of a completion. Also, you will get a copy of the recording or access to the recording and this presentation. Again, thank you all so much for joining. If you do not receive your certificate, please reach out to Bridget, whose contact information is on the slide. And again, stay connected. Oh, Bridget, you're flying through those slides. But stay connected with us by, again, joining these sessions or going on our website, getting connected with our social media, NTTAC, MH, everywhere, except LinkedIn, where it's just NTTAC. Thank you so much again for joining. And feedback is important to us, and we really need to hear from you all in order to keep this resource free. So after this session ends, it will pop up in a few. We ask for you to just take a few minutes to complete a survey and let us know your thoughts. Kathy, do I see your hand up or are you clapping? Clapping. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure if you had a question, we answered it.
Excuse me, this is Patricia. Can you go back to the slide where some of us were listening through the phone, so we need to directly email someone? Thank you.
Oh, only if you do not receive your certificate, you will need to email Bridget. Bridget's contact information will be on
Thank
the
you.
slide. No worry, Patricia, and those slides will be emailed to you. Thank you all for being so graceful with me while I led my first PACT session. Again, appreciate you all joining us, and we will go ahead and let the survey pop up for some feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.